In this video, I'm going to provide a brief introduction to Canada's equalization formula. In Canadian federalism, the national government in Ottawa transfers money to the provinces for different purposes. There are conditional transfers that are designated for a specific purpose. For example, the Canadian Health Transfer is money that's for health care in the provinces. There are also unconditional transfers, and this is where the equalization formula falls under. It is extra money for the provinces, ideally to help normalize and equalize government services across provinces. Where does this come from? Well, the equalization formula is actually entrenched in the Constitution. The Constitution Act 1982 specifies that this system of payments will happen so that provincial governments have sufficient revenues to provide reasonably comparable levels of public service. The idea being that whether you live in Manitoba or British Columbia or New Brunswick, you should have roughly the same access to public services. And in areas with lower populations, the equalization formula can help them deliver services at the same level as some of the larger provinces. How do you get there? How do you figure out who gets the money out of this program and which provinces don't get any? Well, it's based on something called fiscal capacity. And that means the ability to raise money. Provinces with a large population have a larger tax base. They could raise money. Some provinces have natural resource revenue. Those are all the things that are considered. Can you raise money through taxes? Do you have natural resources? And what is the overall economic output of the province, the gross domestic product? Those determine fiscal capacity. If you've got a tax rate of 0 and a large population, then the formula might think, well, yeah, you could just raise taxes. You don't need any money from equalization. You could use your tax system to do that. So after all those factors are considered, we end up with an output each year. And how does that work? What does that look like? Well, conceptually, each citizen pays taxes. We pay two sets of taxes. We pay taxes to the province. We give money to the province in terms of user fees, provincial income taxes, provincial sales taxes. That's money that goes to the provincial government. We also pay money to the federal government. In Ottawa, we pay national income tax. So we pay our income tax that goes to the national government. There's also consumption tax, goods and services taxes. So all that tax revenue is collected by the national government in Ottawa, and they end up with a big pile of money at the end of all that. The next step is to look at the different provinces and their respective fiscal capacity. They establish a benchmark of where they would like every province to be. And some provinces will come below that benchmark. They will have a lower fiscal capacity. Others are above that benchmark, and they do have a high fiscal capacity. So the provinces that are below the benchmark will get money from the equalization formula to top them up. So if you've got, let's say, Quebec or Nova Scotia comes below the benchmark in fiscal capacity, they'll get money from the equalization formula. Provinces that are doing very well, like Alberta, will not get any money. Graphically, we can see that some provinces are getting money through the equalization formula, others are not. PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, getting money from equalization kind of makes sense given the smaller populations and our smaller economies, and the provinces that are doing very well, Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, resource wealth, big resource bases that drive their economy, they don't get any money from the equalization formula. As you can imagine, this is controversial. Today, some provinces are not happy with the equalization formula. Alberta specifically. They see their tax dollars going to Ottawa and then being shipped out to fund other provinces and getting nothing in return. Back in 2021, Albertans even voted in a referendum to try and remove equalization from Canada's Constitution. Now, since it is in the Constitution, it was merely a symbolic vote, but the goal was to express dissatisfaction with the program. There's also another aspect of the equalization program is that provinces don't want to spend their own money. They don't want to raise taxes domestically. They don't want to do anything. They would rather get money from the federal government. So if you're a provincial premier, you need to spend money on health care. You could raise taxes to do that, but that might make you unpopular. Better to ask the federal government for more money, and the federal government will probably give it to them. And then they're free to do something else with their own money. Maybe cut taxes or build highways. Ontario did this very thing. Back in 2023, a report found that their healthcare system was underfunded. It needed an injection of new money. So instead of raising taxes or anything like that, The Ontario Premier went to the federal government and said, hey, give us money, we need money. Federal government came through with about $3 billion in extra money. And then what did the province do? It immediately sort of gave tax rebates to the citizens. And that's how provinces like to function. They don't want to use their own money. They don't want to raise their own taxes because that would make them unpopular. Get the federal government to pay for it. And then you can do something else with the money. Just to recap, equalization formula isn't going anywhere. It is in the Constitution. Want to get rid of it? That requires a constitutional amendment. The idea, try and preserve some kind of economic equality between provinces, at least in the realm of service delivery, because each province is very different in terms of resource endowment and the size of their economy. It's funded with tax revenue, and it's based on fiscal capacity, how well the province could raise revenue on its own if it wanted to. Naturally, this is a controversial program. Provinces don't like to see money going to other provinces. They want the money coming to them.